I was told that we can start. Very good morning. Thank you so much to join our session here today on how to deal with media. When I practiced my short introduction this morning to my 10-year-old daughter, she said, "Papa, you really cannot use the sh word." So I will not mention that. But what we want to talk about is exactly how we want to deal with media. This panel session here is organized actually by the University of Bern. My name is Sebastian. I'm leading the innovation office at the university. So we are supporting students, researchers in translating their research into impactful innovations. And we do that together with our colleagues from the Berner Fachhochschule, Lorenz, who is here with me today. Probably dealing with media is not on top of the agenda of early stage startups. You have definitely other things maybe that more burning, but it is a topic that you might encounter maybe at a very surprising moment. And if you know how to leverage media, it can be a very good thing. It can create visibility. It can strengthen your brand. But at the same time, it can also maybe lead to an existential threat if you have really bad media. And so we want to look at those different aspects of this spectrum today with three distinguished experts representing different kind of perspectives. We have Edith Hollenstein, who's a business journalist at Tamedia. So she's covering topics on technology, innovation, and startups. Thanks so much, Edith, for joining us here today.
Thanks.
We have Terry Kneisler, who most of you will know as the ex-CEO of Twint. Twint, who was named the strongest brand last year, but in the beginning it wasn't always like that. So Thierry has some stories to share with us. And we have Roy Müller, who is working for eMarket Group, who's working with startups on communication, PR, how to deal with media. He has also given media training in the context of the InnoSwiss courses, and he has also his own startup, actually, Kankara. So maybe you drank his drink yesterday at the secret launch.
No. Some of you did.
Perfect. Very tasty, good. So what we want to talk about and look at is like, why does media engagement still matter in the when we have actually social media? We want to look at how you as a startup can get on the radar of journalists, and then how do you deal with media when they actually are very critical of your business. But I'd like to start off and kick off this session with sort of a news story. So maybe you can tell us a little bit which startup has been on your radar recently, positively or negatively, and maybe you can share with us why this story stuck with you. Maybe we start with Edith.
Yes, maybe last week we reported on No Time, which is a startup. It's not a positive, not a successful example, but the startup that was bought by the Schweizerische Post, they had to close down or just shut down the startup. It was the same-day delivery service. They partnerships with Ticketek Galaxus, with Zalando, and also with Brack for same-day delivery. And it was clear, or the Post said that the price is too high and the need of the customer is not that high. So, they close it down. It's about 700 people losing the jobs. It's part-time jobs, sometimes only 20%, but still, not a positive.
Not a
example.
positive. Roy, do you have a positive one?
Yeah, I mean, I have a startup 2 weeks ago, was in the media. It's Planted Food. So, Planted is in the media for a long time, and I would say it's a poster child. So 2 weeks ago, there was a federal court decision that vegan chicken is not chicken. So Planted was indirectly accused of misleading its consumers through its labels, and it's not like a direct claim, but it was somehow negative. But for the first time in the story of Planted, I would say. And why I choose this example, because Planted really handled it well. They pointed out the positive things of the federal court's decision. They pointed out that steaks and sausages and things which aren't animal context are still allowed to tell on their labels. So that's why I chose Planted. Yeah.
Okay, very nice. And Thierry, what's on your radar?
I have a positive one. I was positively surprised that I saw a media article 2 weeks ago of Besso. Besso is a Bernie startup. Most of you will probably not know it because they have a solution. He explained me once, but I honestly don't really know what it does. Somehow it has all tariff structures in the world together, and you can adjust that by AI. So he has that already for a couple of years. And I mean, now with all the tariffs with Trump and so on, so somehow he used that momentum and then he got into media. I find that very cool. So the solution was there before, but now with actuality, he found the way to the media, and most probably, I hope for him that he gets through that a couple of new customers.
So sometimes a negative story can be turned into positive.
Absolutely. I mean, for him, for his business model, this is perfect.
Very good. Thank you, Trump. Okay. So let's first look at why media engagement still matters. I mean, today we all have some sort of a social media account. The startups can announce anything they want on X or LinkedIn or any other channel. So why should startups still care about traditional media? Why should startups think about media engagement and be prepared? Maybe I will ask Edith first.
So I'm not the one to answer this. Because I mean, we as a journalist and in the media, you know maybe about our situation. We have problems with our business models. The printed editions, they erupt, and we still try to get more people reading and paying also for our subscriptions, and it's difficult. And also the tariffs or the cost for advertising, we don't get that much revenue from advertising, and so we have also this fragmented media system with all social media. So for me also it's a question, why is it still important for startups to be on our news websites and in our newspapers?
So let's ask the startuppers. Why should startups invest?
So first of all, I would say not everybody's on Instagram. So if you want to reach potential decision makers like investors, like talents for your startup, they are reading stories about you which are more in depth. So it's not about like scratching the surface. It's more about really having a third-party validated opinion, and also, it's a lot. Especially in the Swiss system here, is a lot about trust and credibility. I would say.
Jerry, why should they think about media engagement, and maybe what are the risks if you're not prepared for media?
Amazing. I mean, we saw that with Twint very much. I think there are different media. There's not one media. What I experienced that still, and we were quite surprised, the best thing in order to also mix of reputation and also white, so that you reach many people, still TV, in my view. TV. I remember when we first had our first, we were first in Echo. We had a long story. Back then that was I think it's not there anymore, but that was a magazine for economics, good reputation. I mean, we never got that much feedback after that one, not being in the media. And then to me, the second one is the reputational media, the quality media. That's very good. That gives you special reputation to me in your industry. In your industry, when you want to reach the people, I mean, best thing always was when you go to 20 Minutes in Switzerland. When you were in there, we got a lot of feedbacks of the public. That was it basically. So basically, to me, this has still much more impact, this kind of media, than social media, because social media is very much fragmented. And I mean, that's my view.
And when you launched Twint in 2015, a spin-off of PostFinance, you were obviously immediately in the spotlight, right? Did you have a strategy how to approach that? And is there anything that you would do differently today?
I mean, I would now hope that I could say yes, but I mean, it was more evolving, like in many startups. No, I mean, to us, it was very important. I mean, first to build up reputation. So for us, every media contact was a good one that we got there in the media. We got coverage. We didn't do that totally systematically, but in the end, when somebody asked us, we gave answers. What, in my view, doesn't work, and also with us didn't work, when you say, hey, I want to come into media, and I have now a media, whatever, press release, and somebody should take it. Because usually, honestly, what is in there, I mean, it's usually not much news, honestly. It's much PR, and that the media won't cover. So you must really have, when you have a good story, what we tried to do, that we could bring that exclusively to one party, so that I could bring it 1 or 2 days before the others. That with Twint works. With a small startup, honestly, it doesn't really work. Mm-hmm. So that's what we did. And then in the end, I mean, we tried to, more or less, if we had news to bring out, we tried to actively bring out, because it's always the worst thing when you get hit by something. You see something in the media and you're surprised that there is something there. Then you have to be in a reaction mode. And that, as a company, don't like that much.
So how are you prepared for media engagement, especially if there's a negative one? You've been working with startups at the, I think, Impact Hub Zurich and InnoSwiss course. So what are maybe some, in a very short time, some of the fundamentals? How do you prepare them? What should they think of before engaging with media?
So first of all, it's all about the story. So you need to get straight to story. You need to say, why are you here? What problem are you solving? And why you? And why now? So this is all you need to wrap up, first of all. And then you need to get the talking points. So if you're talking to journalists, you must say, hey, yeah, that problem I'm solving with this, the classic elevator pitch. And there are also other things to prepare, of course. So when you're Twint, you get a lot of pull media interest. When you're a startup, there is none of it. But if you have it, you should have a media kit, of course. So who are the founders? What their bios, with photos, with videos. You should also have like a one-pager of your startup, what you're doing, which you can also use for the press releases as a boilerplate. And also use multimedia. I think this is really important today, since also press releases are maybe not only the only way to get media interest. And of course, there are also other options, like for the founders, if you do a media training. So media training is always good to prepare yourself to stand in front of the media, to be prepared to interviews, to also maybe critical questions. And I would say also the relationships to the journalists are really important from the beginning on. So start before you in the spotlight. Start engaging with the journalists, with their content, but authentically, genuinely, not just to have another like on their profile. Just really get into touch, and when you're ready, you can also go out. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So talking about going out and timing, so what's the right time to go out and reach out proactively to media? Because I imagine there's also a time where it's too early to go, your product is not ready yet. Is it when you start selling, or what is your advice on that aspect?
So first of all, the golden rule, you have to be newsworthy. So you can't push out a press release, maybe like Twint, and it will be in the media. So as a startup, it's even harder, I would say. And there are less big media in Switzerland that will take up your story. And so you need to be newsworthy. Otherwise, the squeeze is not worth the juice as well for you as a founder. And then if you are launching a product, so this would be maybe something in early stage, which you can communicate to the media. After, maybe in the growth stage, there are other things which are relevant, but be newsworthy.
So let's then ask maybe Edith. So what catches your eye? So when you say, what's your sort of reflection process or decision process on what to report on?
Yeah, actually, I have to say it's really not easy for startups to get into the media, especially when they're not very known by our readers, which is broad public, and you don't have a strong brand. And for me, it's important to report on successful companies. And I cannot report on a project, or even if a company says, okay, I sell a product, still this is not enough. I mean, for example, you mentioned Planted. I did an article on Planted when they built a new factory in Germany. So this for me was the proof, okay, this product has enough demand and they can expand into Germany, other European countries. And the fact that they can invest in a new factory, this is something I can use as a newsworthy angle to tell their story. So, yeah. And otherwise, yeah, sometimes it's startups, they come to us and they want us to maybe write some kind of a company profile only on this startup, and they think, okay, I have a good story, and but I cannot tell only this story. I have to report on developments, on trends, and then I need several perspectives, several maybe startups. Also, I speak to competitors. So this is sometimes wrong understanding a little bit. So, yeah, but yeah.
Do you have any advice on to startups or companies in general on what not to do? So when they approach you, have you had any sort of bad experiences where people have been too pushy, or as you just said, too salesy?
Yeah, maybe this, that they expect us to write a company profile, and also we don't have a lot of time. We are quite under time pressure, and when they invite us to their maybe headquarters and want to show for 3 hours something, it's too time consuming for us. So it's better when a startup founder comes, maybe we write something interesting. When he read another article that fitted to his expertise, he writes me maybe a short note, an email, LinkedIn, and then I can meet him sometimes for a coffee or a short call, and to catch up on a certain expertise, not to invite me for a time-consuming visit. Yeah.
And if I understand correctly, so if you can sort of tie your story or your startup to a bigger story, right? So the Trump tariff story, that is a good way to then make yourself relevant.
Yeah. I remember another company, Scandit, which is also, it's not a startup anymore, but a young company. And I had them in mind. I read a lot about them, but I found it interesting, but I had to have another topic when I wrote about the AI standard, AI ecosystem Switzerland. Then I contacted them, and they were part of a bigger article, together with other companies. Yeah.
Thierry, in fintech, trust is obviously key. So you want to make sure that you're seen positively in the media. How did you deal with journalists who were very skeptical, who maybe were even biased, or you knew that they want to write something negative? How do you deal, or how do you build up a relationship with them?
I remember well. Afterwards, after a couple of years, I won't tell the name. Was one journalist. He was very skeptical. He was very skeptical in the beginning, and he said, "Listen." He said to me, listen, you will have no chance against Apple Pay and whatever. So this will not work. So somehow this Swiss thing that you try to do some things to bank together will never work. And when you have this person which was very strongly opinionated, it's hard. It's hard to get through. What we tried to explain him, okay, that's how it works and that's our advantages and so on. In the end, it helped a couple of years back, because afterwards everything he said, okay, I was wrong. I admit I was wrong. Okay, that's nice, thank you. But back then, when he first reported, he reported what he wanted to report. That's okay. That's his job. He can do. We tried as best as it went to say we don't see it that way. We see it other ways. But then somehow, it worked only. It worked only so well. It worked only so well.
And on the other side, did you have relationships with people or journalists that you knew had a good relationship, and did you sort of nurture that as well proactively?
I mean, as we had a relationship, we didn't nurture it very actively. I mean, what we did, and that worked quite well. When you're that big, we did a couple of, perhaps every half a year, we did something like background talks. I mean, you do that. We also had that with Twint. And then, so more or less explain, okay, what is the bigger picture behind? Perhaps where is the development in the payment industry? Because the payment industry is not an easy one. You must get a bit into it. And there usually 5, 6, 7 people came. And it was not the goal that something comes afterwards, because they will not write about it. But then at least the next time they write about it, then there was some hope, and this usually worked, that they brought the facts correctly out there. That we did. I mean, this is something that I see. I mean, perhaps you see it differently, right? But I see it. I mean, I was still quite astonished when I read articles about our market, our company, which I knew. I mean, you can have an opinion, that's okay. I have no problem if somebody says, we don't like what you do. But sometimes you have factual errors, which just are not true, which just are not like that. They post the wrong owner, they post the wrong whatever market, the wrong customers, just obviously not true. And you can't do anything. I mean, it's just how it is, right? And this is just something that you have to deal with, because nobody will change it. And if somebody changed it, nobody will read the change. So
but when something is really wrong, you have to contact the journalist.
Yeah, we do that. Yeah. But it's only afterward, oh, sorry, I did that. But then, okay, what happens then? Perhaps the online version will be changed of the article. But honestly, some people read the print article if it's there, and then the story is done. Yeah, I saw a couple of times.
I also had a company which was contacted by media, and like they refused to talk to media at all. So they didn't want to have any information go to the journalists. So I consulted them. No, don't do that. Talk to them, and yeah, like we can prepare yourself for the interview. And they refused them. So the story came out, and all the facts about the company were totally wrong. So there was a wrong head count of the company. There was a wrong headquarters in the wrong city. It's totally wrong. Like, okay, the journalist didn't do their research well, I would say, as well. But yeah.
But he had not a chance to talk them.
True.
So yeah.
Yeah, you should do that.
Yeah, actually, yeah, it's important for us that we can ask questions and we get answers. So, and sometimes also it's helpful to have somebody explaining something on the telephone, and afterwards I can send the parts of the story that will be published to double check. So, but yeah, sometimes it's also difficult when I have only I can only send question and I get only written answers. So it's helpful to have somebody who explains also the context to us. Yeah.
And perhaps I totally agree. I mean, sometimes I also think other companies, they just think, somehow, and this is stupid. We don't want to give interviews because every word will be taken, and I cannot say. I mean, my experience is different. It's I think a human experience when you talk to the other person. Hey, on same eye level, okay, you have questions, and I answer them. But please, if you write something, please show me what you write, because it might be that I use a word that I don't like to have in the written audio. And I never had a problem where I say, hey, please, could you replay? I know I said it, but somehow it just doesn't fit that word. Could you please take it away? And usually there was no problem.
Maybe Eddie, can you give us some insights on that etiquette? So what can a startup or anyone ask from you? So once you have interviewed them, so can they reread? How much can they ask you to change? What is going too far in asking? Yeah. Those kind of changes.
Usually, I do an interview, and in the interview, I ask questions, and I say that what is spoken, that is also possible for me to write. Otherwise, the person that I interview says, "Oh, this is off the record," and then I cannot use it as a quote, but for background. And after the interview, when I write an article, I send the quotes by email to double check. And of course, you cannot say, "Oh, I didn't say that," or you cannot stop the publication of the article, but you can say, okay, you have to change this, or this I meant in another way. Then it's possible. Then, of course, I also have the interest that I understood you properly. So that's maybe for it's for both sides a good thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned before the importance of storytelling, shaping the right story, and as an entrepreneur, you learn very early on to pitch your story to investors or to clients, but rarely to journalists. Is there any difference in the way you pitch your product, your startup, to a journalist versus to an investor or a client?
Yes, yeah, of course, there are a lot of differences when you pitch your story to investors or journalists or also other stakeholders which are interested maybe in your company. So think of it like what do the journalists want and what do the investors want. So the goal of a journalist is to have a novelty, to have a story which is read by like the public. And the investor, they want to spot something interesting to invest in, right? So there are two different goals. So also change your tone, how you speak to the journalists. It's more factual, it's more emotional. When you talk to investors, it's more about growth, numbers, things like that, you know. And so I would say there are major differences. Always think of what is the goal of the people I'm talking to. Doesn't matter if it's a journalist, investor, or other stakeholders. And would you agree?
Yeah, of course. I mean, against maybe investors, you can talk about the margin expectations or something like that. We have another focus, so it could be maybe counterproductive if you mention that.
Well, perhaps this one. I think I would add something, right? I mean, against investors, you should be totally honest and transparent. I mean, honest you should also be against, but transparent. No, sorry, I just thought the word transparent. Transparent. You should tell everything against the investor because they give you money. And I mean, you must always know when you talk to a journalist, I mean, this must be public information that you say, okay, everything that you say can be used in an article. And I mean, honestly, you don't usually want to say, okay, how much money you earn or you don't earn. That's the typical question. Okay, and then how much investment. So basically, usually the money numbers in the early stages, you don't want to have to be published.
Yeah, of course.
This is something that also we did back then at Twint. I mean, I was asked many times, and I still won't say it. Even if I get asked today, how much was invested? And we saw the numbers. I mean, you saw the numbers of 500 million in the media. We just said, okay, we just give no comment. We just give no comment at that thing, because this is something also out of my hands then that I should say. And there you must be a bit of prudent.
I agree, yeah. So the mission stays the same, but the tone is different. Yeah.
But talking about transparency, I think that's a very important point. What do you advise on transparency? Because it can also backfire, right? Like some journalists might start to speculate. You kind of fill the void with the wrong numbers, etc. What's your approach there?
I mean, I would always go with transparency. Don't tell everything, of course. You can own your secrets, of course, but I wouldn't lie, never. Don't lie. And I'm going for transparency.
Eddie, do you feel when someone that interview is not transparent, is trying to find his or her way out?
Of course.
You feel always find the truth.
Yes, always. No, this answer I cannot answer to that. I think because I don't know. Sometimes, of course, I'm aware that the counterside is prepared. They have their story. They want to bring to certain messages. They repeat, and of course, I cannot see the whole pictures. And I try to ask questions, and sometimes I get more detailed information. Sometimes not. Yeah.
Okay. Let's briefly touch upon sort of tools and approaches, and they were briefly mentioned. Press release. So is it still worth making a press release if you can go on the social media? Edith, when we spoke, you had to think whether actually it really matters.
Yeah, I get so many press releases. It's when you really want me to read your press release, then you have to stop it. Then it's not worth it. Sometimes I just look through my inbox and I open certain press releases because I have so many. So maybe for startups it's not very useful. It's maybe better to communicate on your platforms like social media accounts and blogs, and send me maybe a link to your blog or publish on your channels. I'm also on LinkedIn. I scroll through my feed there, and sometimes the interesting experts or stories appear there.
You mentioned LinkedIn is
advice.
LinkedIn is your source, also a bit of.
Yeah, I used to use X, but then not anymore. But at the moment, LinkedIn is actually an important source also for stories, experts, inspiration. Yeah.
What's your view on that, like on LinkedIn and versus media release?
Usually, media release as startups. Sometimes you just put together your information and then you call it media release, right? It's not like a big thing. I think it makes sense that you put together what you want to communicate. That makes sense anyway. And if you just put it then on a PDF and have a catchy news title, why not? It's not bad, but usually it doesn't help. It doesn't help much. What helps is when you have, and I think that's good, right? When you have already a relationship to a journalist to say, hey, here, cool. Hey, remember we talked 6 months back and so on. We have some news for you. Would that be interesting? So try to bring that personal relationship so that you open this email because you get it from a person that you remember.
Yeah,
I think that can work.
You mentioned exclusive news. This is something important for us as well. I write a lot for Sonntagszeitung and also Tagesanzeiger, BZ and Basel Zeitung, and these titles there. And to bring my stories through, I have to explain internally, and exclusive news is it's very valuable for us. Yeah.
That we did. I remember. I think we did it like that when when Twint was formed, like after post-finance time, when we went together with 6 banks. That was news. And I think we tried to orchestrate that we brought it to one of the Sunday newspapers. I honestly don't remember which one it was, but somehow, and then somebody brought it one day before, and then the others followed on Monday. And that brought us, that's then also a bit like, okay, hey, we have a cool story, and then the journalists also say, okay, when I can use this story exclusively, then I guarantee you that you get a big space. That's something that worked, but that only worked perhaps 1 or 2 times in this whole story. It doesn't work for 95% of all this stuff.
I would say press releases still work. So
okay.
It's depending also the media. Some are giving you clippings, which helps you as a startup to have something around when you Google your startup, but also it depending the context. So your example of No Time, if you're not doing a press release, the media, like what they get, where the information come from. Of course, a press conference is also a good way to do this, but for purposes like that, major news, a press release is still a tool which I would recommend.
I only thought of startups.
Yeah.
It's not the right, or can be a tool, but I'd focus on others. But when you have news, of course, and established, already known company or startup, then of course, it's still a mean.
Perhaps one ad. Sorry, LinkedIn. You mentioned. What is very important, like the LinkedIn algorithm works like that. The company side of LinkedIn, they don't work. They just don't work. You can do it, but it just have no resonance. Why ever? It's just like that. So when you post on LinkedIn, do it on your personal profile. You can do that as a founder. You can do that perfectly. Hey, that's my company. That's my story. Blah blah blah. That works. All the other stuff don't work. That's perhaps one thing.
Yeah, I would agree also that I guess this is what you're looking for experts and not the company and
it's
one vision.
more the founders who tell something new,
Yes.
something interesting to a hot topic in the moment or something. Yeah.
So you kind of position yourself as a influencer, as an expert, right, on the topic itself, but not necessarily on your company. And this way, attract attention, attract journalists.
Yeah.
So you were telling the story. Crafting is really important in journalism as well. You sort of tell a story, but that story is sometimes not the same as the story that the startup would like to convey. And so sometimes it's a negative reporting, right? What would be your advice if you had to advise a startup on how to handle a negative story?
I can only maybe tell from my experience that some of them then they try and call me, and then they try to convince me from their point of view, and I listen to them because I think it's important. Maybe I can I have to change my point of view, but this is something they try to do. But to advise. It's difficult for me to answer something else. I don't know.
Is there any way? Yesterday when we spoke, you said basically, I don't say anything.
Yeah. I mean, perhaps I have two ways that okay. So first of all, when you see the first negative article about your company, I mean, the first reaction that you have, like immediate reaction, I have to say something. Huh? I have to argument together. Huh? But then I always say, no, that's not a good thing, because one article written, if there are no follow-up articles, if not the story doesn't go on, it's just an article, interesting today, tomorrow is forgotten, and the day after nobody knows about it. So me as a company, when I have a negative thing, I have an interest that the story doesn't go on. So then I don't fuel the fire. Huh? So, and if I give a comment, if I even say I don't agree, then the story goes on. Cool, okay, I have another argument, then whatever can force them back. That's the worst thing that can happen. So that I usually try first. 90% of the case it works. And when it doesn't work, when the story still goes on, and it goes on when the next paper takes it on the next media, I read that, and now I have an add-on stuff, and so on. We had that once with Twint. When we started 2017, we started a new solution. And in the end, we were too early in the market, as always, and it didn't really work. I mean, somehow, I don't know, we had something like 10-20% of the transactions didn't work. And people knew that, so they saw that. And then we had a couple of articles, Twint doesn't work. I remember one headline, who took it, they call it not Twint, because you have win in the middle, they call it T lost. I mean, that was not nice. That was not nice. And then, I mean, somehow you have to sit it out. In the end, you still have to argue. And it was quite interesting. Perhaps it was more funny. We just said, okay, we have somehow to turn this story. And then we brought the story. We said, hey, we're actually working on 1 or 2 new features. And then the media took that up. They just wrote, Twint works on that feature, and then the other story was gone. I don't know if it was luck, if the other story would have died anyway, or if it really just helped to turn it. But that's how I try to.
Did you do it yourself or with external help?
No, the last one, then we did with external help to say, hey, we have to change the narrative somehow. Huh? And then we tried it, and somebody took it up, and then this took over. As I said, I don't know if it was chance, but that was planned. We tried to do that. Yeah.
What's your advice on how to avoid a shitstorm? So what I take away from you, Thierry, is like stay cool, look out, offer alternatives, trying to change the narrative.
So yeah, I mean, negative headlines are not always a substantial crisis. Yeah, stay calm. Do not react or overthink the headlines. If there is a claim, like in the media article or the TV interview or whatever, that you are maybe doing something totally wrong, and then you need to get together a crisis team for that. And then you have to decide, okay, who is in this crisis team? It's, of course, the CEO. It's the maybe HR if the people in the companies are affected, or maybe if it is a product, then the product, and of course, the legal counsel. And then you have to assess the story first. So what is being claimed? What is truth of it, what is wrong, and then if you're still assessing a story, you can also send out a holding statement. So to journalists, short and brief, hey, we are assessing the situation, and yeah, we're coming up with new information later. And then you have to decide. If the headlines are like spreading and there are coming more and more and more, you have to communicate publicly. If maybe it's an isolated case, you don't have to maybe go out publicly. You can also just inform your workers in the company. And if there is maybe something to correct, then you can do it directly to journals as well. So I would say you have these three options. And of course, you have to also install media monitoring. You have to listen to social medias. You have to see what is the sentiment changing of the perception of your company. And yeah, this can be a crisis mode, of course. But I would say a negative headline is not always a death blow. Yeah.
Perfect. Looking at the time, and I think we will open up now the round for questions. I think we have our colleague over there who will bring the microphone. Any questions for our panelists? Over there.
I have a question. I see on LinkedIn a lot of founders mentioning where they've been featured in. Does that help with traditional media to attract your attention if someone is already featured in other media?
Not especially when they post that on LinkedIn, but I look through other magazines like Bilanz, or I read Guardian, also Financial Times, and or also NZZ or Blick. And of course, when they're mentioned already in another publication, yeah, it's more that they get also to my radar. Yeah, but not especially when they list on LinkedIn all the media coverage that they got. So this not especially. Yeah.
Not too much self-promotion. Yes.
Thanks. I have a question for you about exclusivity. So, because I work for a startup foundation that helps startups, and one of the things I do is try to help their visibility. And so, if I pitch a story to a journalist with exclusivity, I always feel a bit awkward. You know, do I have to give a deadline, and then from then it's not exclusive anymore? I'm going to approach somebody else. Like, how does that work for you? If how would you like that to look for you?
Mostly, this happens like that somebody calls me and says, okay, this is the news we would like to publish in the next 2 weeks. We could give this information exclusively to you. And then I can have a look at the draft, maybe from press release or study or whatever. And when I decide, okay, this is something I want to report on, I say, okay, we bring that in next Sonntagszeitung. And then I decide together with this person that she decides to send the press release maybe 2 weeks later, 2 days later, not 2 weeks, 2 days later, or yeah, Sonntagszeitung, sometimes Monday or something like that, yeah. Is it
journalists, let's say, because sometimes they don't reply, or I need to know within a day or two and I haven't received the answer yet. You know, is it okay to say today, or, you know?
Yeah, that's. I can imagine that it's really difficult for you. I have so many emails, I cannot read them and respond. I'm already happy when I can respond to all the people I know. Yeah, sometimes even this is not possible. So you don't have to take this personally. Maybe you just try again, or maybe your story was not that breaking or not that hot or not that exclusive and relevant. Relevance is very important for us. Yeah.
I think we have one more question over there. So I'm glad you read my email when I reached out to you.
So it took some days as well.
It's okay. You're here.
Hi, I'm Julia. I'm the CEO of Lili. We offer as alternative or solution against an alternative to the weight loss medication. There's a lot of media coverage on the weight loss medication right now that seems sometimes to be strongly supported by big pharma, and it's very positive towards these. How as we as a solution or support to that, how can we attract the attention of the journalists working on that?
Yeah, I can imagine that this could look like a big some kind of orchestrated thing to you, maybe from big pharma, but it's not. It's some kind of news cycle. This weight loss medication. It's a hot topic. It's very topic that our readers are really keen on. We see that in our click rates, and I would advise you to look who is specialized, what journalists are specialized in pharma, and contact this person. Contact and ask if she has time for maybe quarter an hour to have a call that you can tell your story when you contact her as the CEO of Lili. Then of course it's better than a PR agency. I would try that.
Final word on that, maybe Oi?
Maybe just to add, always do your research. Don't go out broadly to journalists which are not interested in your cause or story. So just who is writing about it. Also engage with them, nurture them maybe through the time, and when the timing is right, go out to exact the journalists you want to have on your story.
I mean, I would add the same, and also to the exclusivity story perhaps. When we had that, we usually approached the journalists directly. So we reached out and said, hey, we have a topic, can we talk? Not writing anything about the topic, and if you get the feedback within 24 hours, and usually you get it from that person that you have already a relationship with. I mean, that's what we do as well, right? We respond to those people that we know already, and that usually works, so I would also agree. I mean, it's the same as in real life, right? Those people that you have contacted before, and I think that's important also for journalists and startups. I mean, in the end, don't just do transactional relationships, meaning not building up any relationship and then, I want something from you. I mean, honestly, I refuse all the time, right? When somebody just come up to me and say, hey, I want something from you, and I don't even know that person, so why should I? But when you have already a relationship, that works. And it's the same, the relationship between you and a journalist, than in any other relationship. I mean, in the end, we're all humans, so I think that. Building relationships, make it relevant to the journalist. Maybe two takeaways. I see people are already enjoying the nice weather outside. Time to go for coffee. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you especially also to our panelists. I think they deserve the round of applause. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Merci, sehr gerne. War nix. Ja.